Has our industry for years been asking the wrong questions about tech? We've been asking whether AI will replace journalists, whether social media is helping or hurting us, whether younger audiences still care about news, whether gaming creators and algorithms are distractions from our mission. But what if those aren't the real questions? What if the real question is whether journalism is still operating from a 20th century playbook, while audiences have already moved to a completely different media universe? Our guest today argues exactly that. Hi, I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. This is E&P Reports, our weekly vodcast series, which goes beyond the headlines to explore the people, ideas, and innovations shaping the future of news publishing. In a series of thought-provoking columns for E&P, Chad Davis, Chief Innovation Officer at Nebraska Public Media and founder of the Public Media Futures Lab, has challenged some of journalism's most deeply held assumptions. He has argued that gaming may be more important to media's future than broadcasting sites and pages, that journalism is moving from a culture of literacy towards a culture of conversation, and that AI should be viewed less as a threat and more as a creative forge. And that media organizations need to rethink not only how they create content, but how audiences discover and interact with it. Whether you agree with him or not, his ideas are impossible to ignore. I want to welcome Chad to the program. Chad, first of all, thank you for the amazing columns you've been doing for E&P. I hope there'll be more. We're getting good, I guess you would call it interaction. We're getting great response. I hope you're getting the same, sir.
Yes. Well, thanks for the opportunity just to kind of express my voice and an opinion on public media. And yeah, it's been fun so far. I'm looking forward to doing more.
Well, the challenge I've been having is as we post them is I don't think they're columns for public media anymore. I think they're columns for all media. I see so many of the topics that you discuss actually bridging all forms of media. Don't you agree, sir? I mean, you look at it through a public media lens, but I think everyone can learn from the content.
Well, I mean, obviously my background's in public media. That's where my career has been. But I do look at public media as being, one part of the larger media landscape and an important part, as a complement to, the types of, main media that people give their attention to day in and day out. Almost like, I'm trying to think. I think we are an important component of call it a healthy media diet.
I like that. There's a pull quote. I could use that. Thank you. When we come back, we're going to discuss why Chad believes gaming may be the most overlooked opportunity in local media, why Jeff Jarvis, who was on this show just last week's theory of the Gutenberg parentheses could help explain journalism's current identity crisis, and why AI may be pushing journalism toward a future that looks surprisingly similar to the distant past. That's a lot. We'll unpack it. Stick around.
Hello, my name is Walter Hussman. Our family has been in the news business for over 100 years. Journalism includes two parts, reporting the news and providing opinions. But in recent years, there's been too much opinion appearing in news reporting. This has eroded public trust in news reporting to the lowest level of any U.S. institution. To address this, we started a nonprofit, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting.
The Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR, is on a mission to rebuild public trust in journalism, one newsroom and one classroom at a time. We champion the effort to have news organizations and journalism schools create and prominently display their own clear, concise statements of core journalistic values. Learn more by visiting the Center for Integrity and News Reporting site at cfinr.org.
Chad, one of your most provocative arguments is that gaming is now a bigger cultural force than television, film, and music combined. Why do so many news executives still dismiss gaming as irrelevant to the art of journalism or the journalism industry?
I think that news execs are looking at, they're looking at a crisis, that we all know pretty well at this point. News deserts are growing, not shrinking. Local news is getting harder and harder, and so I think news types are just looking at how do we continue to pursue our mission. Where I think you've seen gaming take root and be successful are people who are collaborators with compatriots of the news folks, and we talk a lot in sort of the small group of game developing folks in public media about the New York Times. So we think that's kind of the model. And the joke is sort of that the New York Times is a gaming company with a news problem. And but I think it's true that they've really been able to show daily habit formation, daily interactions with their brand. They've been able to kind of extend their mission and values through gaming, and that helps them support the journalism. So, I think news directors need to be thinking about games as a way of continuing to serve the audience beyond the core work that they still need to be doing.
I want to shift gears now and talk about Jarvis. He's just on our show, but we're discussing something completely different. But I have had him on the show to discuss the Gutenberg parentheses, that theory that caught my attention. And explain the concept to our audience in simple terms. And what does it mean when you say journalism may be moving from literacy back toward orality? Explain that to me, please.
So first, let's just unpack the parenthetical aspect of it. Obviously, parentheses is sort of a clustered statement with a beginning and an end. And what Jarvis is arguing, or he's extending the argument. I think even he would say he's not. He isn't necessarily the originator, but he has seen the wisdom of this argument that others have made. And the argument is that when the printing press came on the scene, and Gutenberg obviously wasn't necessarily, he kind of put all the parts together. He isn't necessarily the only person to have done movable type or printing presses that was already active in Asia at that point. But as that got imported into Europe, it began to allow people to codify information. It was now repeatable. It was now something that could be copied. And that began a culture of literacy that it took a long time to take hold. It was a kind of a violent birth, but kind of began to peak, I think, in the 20th century. Now we are seeing a shift back in the other direction. So think about before the parenthesis. We had a world that was mostly where information was largely conveyed outside of a select class of, let's say, clergy or intellectuals. It was conveyed orally. And when you look at the rise of social media, when you look at the rise of influencers on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, like that is a reversion to, I think, a very natural human way of communication, which is oral, which is orality. And it turns out there's an entire school of thought around this that was sort of, I think, centered a little bit around McLuhan, around Ong, and others kind of out of the Toronto school in the mid to late 20th century that actually were looking at this shift from orality to literacy. And then even in the 80s, they were saying, oh, it feels like we're shifting back towards orality. And I think you are seeing really high contrast examples of that today with platforms like TikTok, and the shift that I think a lot of news directors are concerned about, which is the shift towards influencers and away from sort of institutional news reporting and those consumer habits kind of sliding towards orality.
One line from your latest column really jumped out at me. AI is the forge, not the fire. Again, you give amazing pull quotes whenever you write. We have actually battled which Chad quote are we going to pull out? But I love that one. What does that mean to you? AI is not the forge. AI is the forge, not the fire, sir.
Yeah, and I want to give some credit where it's due, although I am blanking on the name. That was a line that stood out for me from the Game Developers Conference. I have been a devotee of South by Southwest for many years. I think it's a great conference to go to if you're in the media space, because you can get a lot of different influences. But this year, I kind of supplemented it by going to the Game Developers Conference, and I really came away from that conference with a clear sense that if you want to see the future of media, you have to look at what gaming is going through right now. They're about a year out ahead of where kind of the core of the media industry is at, and they're talking about how do we use AI in our space, in our industry, and the forge is not the fire. It's saying AI is going to give you the capacity to do things, but it is not the thing that actually changes to extend the metaphor, the physical composition of the material you're working with. Like, it is not going to like soften the metal and let you shape it. It is the overall ecosystem that makes the shaping possible. That's how I kind of interpret that quote.
You argue that human intent remains the scarce resource. Does AI make creativity more important rather than less important?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, I think AI can be, when used with intent, a real lubricant for creativity. But we were early on in Nebraska Public Media, with creating a policy that kind of served as a permission slip to use AI. We had to put guardrails around it because we're public media, and trust is one of our most important assets. So we always think about how do we protect trust. But it was very clear in 2023, this is the future of not just media but the world,
right.
and we need to get our staff ready to participate and be contributors to media in that world. So since 2023, I've been trying to think a little bit about how we use AI in our creative workflows. And I think when you come in with a story that you already know you want to tell, or an experience that you already know you want to create, slop, I heard someone define slop as sort of the use of AI without intent. Just sort of throwing stuff into the prompt window and letting it generate whatever and then publishing that's the slop. But when you come in with a direction with that intent, I think AI can actually help you create some creative friction. I Going back to kind of the literacy aspect of it, I find that just hearing its challenges, hearing is sort of like reading its challenges to concepts or ideas, is a real value to me. I'm actually using Gemini right now to kind of create my own media theory master's degree. I've like got a whole bunch of texts that I've kind of loaded in, and I'll be weirdly using imagery. I like took pictures of my bookshelves and my Kindle library and my reading wish list, and just loaded it all in and asked like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to create my own master's program. Can you create a curriculum for me? And it built me a 6-semester, 6-phase curriculum, and I'm reading through it now. It's all material that I already have on my shelf. I just didn't know how to organize it in a way that like was efficient. And so it kind of has helped me do that. And I think that's the type of use that AI can have, where again, it's not making things frictionless. The pitch that the Altmans and the various leaders of AI companies are making, it's like, oh, it's going to make your life frictionless. I don't think that's a good thing. I think we as humans need friction. That's where we get our best ideas. The old cliche, necessity is the mother of invention. That's friction. That's just articulating that you need some friction to actually come up with something that has utility and value.
But we do everything to avoid it. Isn't it amazing? We, as a human being, we try to avoid that friction, but sometimes it's that friction that makes us achieve the next goal, correct? And you get to the next place.
Absolutely, but it's kind of it's an industrial mindset, I think,
Yeah.
that we have to be more efficient. We have to eliminate the friction, and if you kind of read anything along the lines of like abundance theory, and I'm not necessarily referring to the book by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, but just that whole theory that we're moving into a phase where we will be able to pick and choose our friction, as opposed to having it necessarily forced
Yeah.
upon us. That's a concept I think people haven't fully internalized yet, and that's going to be part of what AI allows for. And so we have to almost become curators of friction.
All right. So, final question. If we bring you back on this very program in 2030, what do you think we'll be talking about that sounds absolutely bat crazy today, but we feel is obvious then? We're talking 4 years from now.
Okay, if I'm just gonna like kind of go kind of blue sky crazy thinking here. Like I would say that by 2030, and I'm not totally totally sure even how much I believe this, but let's have some fun. I think we will have had a huge breakthrough on quantum computing that will have everybody talking about the death of passwords and security, and that magnified by a further advance towards artificial general intelligence. I don't think we're going to know when that hits, but I think the combination of artificial general intelligence, or let me say, I don't think we're going to know when that hits until it's in the rearview mirror. But I think that combined with quantum is going to really change how we do what we do. It's just going to push us further into that arena of abundance. And think about how you felt the first time you used the internet. If you can kind of like remember that, and that sense of capaciousness, that sense of anything is out there. I can consume anything now. I no longer have to like, now we'll be able to create anything. And I think there's going to be a lot of folks kind of just, again, wrestling with like, oh my gosh, what does this mean for my industry? So I think quantum's the sort of X factor.
Chad Davis, Chief Innovation Officer at Nebraska Public Media and founder of the Public Media Futures Lab, and of course, columnist now for E&P Magazine. We appreciate your time, your insights, and we will have you back. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike.